Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world one book at a time.
It is good to be back. And today we're taking on a real titan, a book that's so embedded in the cultural consciousness that I think most people have, stopped actually reading it.
We really are. We're looking at F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, and I know I can almost hear the collective sigh of 1,000 high school students.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I read that. It's the one with the green light and the guy who says, old sport, way too much.
Precisely. It's been labeled the Great American Novel, which is, usually a tag we slap on something so we can just put it on a shelf and never think about it again.
Right.
But for this deep dive, we really need to reset the frame on it entirely.
Yeah, because if you read this book as a romance,
Yeah.
which is, let's be honest, how the movies usually pitch it.
Always.
It's just a tragedy about a guy who can't get the girl. It's sad, sure, but it's kind of small.
But if you read it as a systems analysis, then it becomes a blueprint. It's a terrifyingly accurate map of how a society manufactures legitimacy.
Okay, so what's the systemic question here?
The question is arguably more relevant now than it was in 1925. It's how does a ruling class maintain its boundaries? And what exactly happens when an unauthorized individual, a hacker, effectively tries to force his way into that system?
Oh, I love that framing. Gatsby not as a lovelorn hero, but as a hacker.
That's what he is.
A guy trying to reverse engineer the code of the elite.
He is running a brute force attack on the American class system. He's throwing money, spectacle, everything he has at the firewall, hoping to crash through.
And understanding why he fails it feels crucial right now. We live in the golden age of the curated persona.
Absolutely. The era of image management, personal branding.
Fake it till you make it.
That's the one. And it's this constant cultural message, right, that you can invent yourself from scratch, that if you just manifest it, if you just grind hard enough, you can overwrite your own source code.
It's basically Instagram versus reality,
Yeah.
just writ large on Long Island in the 20s.
Exactly. But The Great Gatsby, it suggests something else. It suggests there are hard structural limits to that self-invention. It says there's a rigid operating system running in the background that dictates who gets to be real and who is just, performing.
So our mission for this deep dive is to strip away all the romance. We're not here to decide if Tom Buchanan is a villain or if Gatsby is a hero.
No, not at all. That's missing the point.
We want to look at the machinery, the incentives, the feedback loops, and the structural barriers that actually dictated their outcomes.
Ready to step into the roaring 20s.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And I think context is everything here. We're in 1922. The Great War is over. But that trauma is still sitting there, just under the surface.
And the economy's going wild. The bond business is exploding. Wall Street is becoming this engine of what seems like infinite promise.
And society itself feels like it's cracking apart, right? You have this massive influx of new money fueled by the stock market. And of course, the big one, prohibition.
Bootlegging, the source of all this chaotic, untraceable wealth. But what Fitzgerald does so brilliantly is he anchors this social chaos in a very specific geography.
The eggs. You cannot talk about the system in this book without talking about the map.
The geography is the system map. It's genius. So first you have this big split, the Middle West versus the East.
Right, and Nick Carraway, our narrator, he's from the Midwest.
Right.
He describes it as the ragged edge of the universe.
Which is funny because he's talking about, stable, moral, grounded communities.
Yeah, a little harsh. But he leaves because they feel static. He wants to go where the action is, the heat.
He wants to go to the center of power,
Yeah.
New York, Long Island. And on Long Island, Fitzgerald gives us these two enormous eggs of land, East Egg and West Egg.
They're identical in shape, separated only by this courtesy bay. Nick says their physical resemblance is a source of confusion to the gulls.
But to the humans, they are a universe apart.
I was rereading the descriptions of the houses, and the difference is so stark. It's not about the price tag. It's all about the style.
It is entirely about style, which is just another way of saying it's about history. Let's start with East Egg. This is the established system.
This is old money.
Old money. The Buchanans live here. And their house, it's described as a cheerful, red and white Georgian colonial mansion overlooking the bay.
The key is that it belongs there. It feels like it grew out of the earth. It's settled.
Exactly. And the lawns. You have to mention the lawns.
The lawn started at the beach and ran toward the front door for a quarter of a mile, jumping over sundials and brick walks and burning gardens.
It's aggressive, but it's naturalized. It's effortless. The people in East Egg, Tom and Daisy, they don't just have money. In a way, they are their money. Their position is presented as a fact of nature. They don't have to try.
Okay, now contrast that with West Egg, where Nick and Gatsby live.
West Egg is. It's the frantic, imitative system. It's new money. It's the place for people who have acquired the wealth but haven't been laundered by time and tradition yet.
It's defined by effort.
Totally. And Gatsby's house is the perfect example. Nick calls it a factual imitation of some Hotel de Ville in Normandy.
Imitation, that's the word. And factual, it's technically correct, like you checked all the boxes.
But it's spiritually wrong. It has a tower on one side, spankin' new under a thin beard of raw ivy, a marble swimming pool, and more than 40 acres of lawn.
It's a stage set.
It is. It's a broadcast tower. He is just signaling wealth, wealth, wealth as loud as he possibly can. Look at me. I have the resources. I belong here.
But the central thesis of the book, if we're just looking at this map, is that while money can be acquired, legitimacy is a closed loop.
That's it. You can move from poverty to wealth. That's the American dream, right? That's the vector James Gatz travels.
But you cannot move from West Egg to East Egg.
Even though it's just across the bay, even though he can literally see the green light on Daisy's dock, that little bit of water between them is an impermeable barrier.
So the system is designed to allow the established elite, what Nick later calls the careless people, to insulate themselves.
While the challengers, the hackers like Gatsby, burn themselves out completely just trying to cross that water.
I want to dig into that access control mechanism, because it's not a physical thing like a fence or a gate. It's a code. It's a social language.
It's a very sophisticated IFF, system identification, friend or foe.
And Gatsby, he's constantly triggering the faux alarm, even when he thinks he's blending in perfectly.
And especially when he thinks he's blending in, that's when it's most obvious.
Okay, so let's talk about the pink suit.
The pink suit, oh man. It is one of the most devastatingly precise details in the whole book.
It happens in chapter 7, right? The big confrontation is bubbling up at the Plaza Hotel, and Gatsby shows up wearing this gorgeous pink suit.
And Tom Buchanan just, he uses it to completely dismantle him. Tom's been investigating Gatsby. He's suspicious. But notice, this is before he has the proof. Before he knows for sure about the bootlegging.
Right.
He just knows Gatsby is a fraud, and he says it. An Oxford man? Like, hell he is. He wears a pink suit.
It's such a specific and petty and just brutal takedown.
But it's systemic. In the unwritten code of East Egg, in the operational language of old money, you do not wear a pink suit. It's too loud. It's too new.
It's trying too hard.
It screams, I bought this because I could, not because I should.
And for Gatsby, that suit represents success.
Yeah.
It's beautiful cloth. It's obviously expensive. It's vibrant. He thinks he's signaling, look, I made it. I have taste.
But to the system he's trying to hack, it's a giant neon sign blinking unauthorized access. Does not belong.
Tom identifies him as a swindler, not by his crimes initially, but by his aesthetics, by his taste.
It's like wearing a tuxedo to a beach party. It doesn't matter how expensive the tuxedo is, it just proves you don't understand the rules of the game.
And because the rules are unwritten, you can't just study them in a book. You have to be born into them.
And that's the status hierarchy as an access control system. The barrier isn't money. Gatsby has more money than almost everyone in East Egg. The barrier is nuance. It's code.
This brings us to the nature of the wealth itself. Because you're right, not all money is created equal in this book. There's a huge difference.
It's a critical distinction. We have to look at wealth as legitimacy versus wealth as performance.
Okay, let's start with Tom Buchanan. Fitzgerald's description of him is so visceral. He's not just rich, he's physically imposing.
He has a cruel body. That's the phrase Nick uses. 2 shining, arrogant eyes, a supercilious manner. He has this enormous power that he can barely contain. He's literally puffed up with his own status.
Yeah, there's that scene early on where he moves Nick around the room just by the pressure of his hand on his shoulder. It's a power move.
Tom's wealth is physical.
Yeah.
It's embodied. He doesn't need to prove anything. He brings down a string of polo ponies from Lake Forest for the summer just because he feels like it. It's the ease of it, the lack of effort. He treats his wealth as a natural law, like gravity. He has it because he is Tom Buchanan. It's an extension of himself.
And then you look at Gatsby, and Gatsby is working so hard. Every single interaction is a performance.
It's constant curation. The mansion, the hydroplane, the station wagon that acts like a bus for his servants and his party guests. He's constantly directing the scene. Old sport, look at this, old sport, come see that.
The shirts, we have to talk about the shirts.
Oh, the scene with the shirts.
Yeah.
It's the absolute climax of his performance of wealth.
So Gatsby is finally showing Daisy his house. He's showing her all the proof of his success. And he gets to his bedroom and just starts throwing shirts on the table.
Piles of them. Nick lists the colors.
Shirts of sheer linen and thick silk and fine flannel.
Coral and apple green and lavender and faint orange.
And Daisy just... She breaks down. She buries her face in the pile of shirts and sobs. And she says, "It makes me sad because I've never seen such beautiful shirts before."
She's not really crying about shirts, is she?
No, of course not. She's crying about the lost time. She's crying about the sheer, overwhelming volume of effort Gatsby has gone through to get to this point.
She is completely overwhelmed by the performance. But look at what Gatsby is actually doing. He's piling up objects. He has this belief that if he accumulates enough enchanted objects, he can literally overwrite his own past.
He's trying to delete James Gatz of North Dakota.
James Gatz. Yes, the son of shiftless and unsuccessful farm people. The boy who, beat his way along the south shore of Lake Superior as a clam digger and a salmon fisher.
The boy who wore a torn green jersey and canvas pants. That's the person he is at war with.
That boy is his shame. That boy is his reality. But he invented J. Gatsby as, and this is Nick's incredible phrase, a platonic conception of himself.
The platonic conception of himself. What does that even mean?
It implies that Gatsby believes there is a perfect, ideal version of himself that exists out there in the realm of ideas, like a son of God, Nick says. And he believes he can manifest that ideal in the physical world through sheer will and resource allocation.
If I buy the house, and I buy the shirts, and I throw the parties, I will become the prince I imagine myself to be.
But the system, which is represented by Tom, values origin over current assets. To Tom, Gatsby's wealth is just bizarre and sinister.
It's chaotic.
It's chaotic. Money without history is a threat to the established order because it implies that anyone could become powerful.
And if a clam digger from North Dakota can become a king, then the existing kings aren't actually special.
Exactly. It completely undermines the divine right of kings that East Egg implicitly relies on. So they have to reject him. They have to frame his wealth as illegitimate, as dirty.
There's another character who spots the performance, but from a different angle. The guy in the library, Owl Eyes.
Ah, yes. The man with the enormous owl-eyed spectacles. He's drunk in Gatsby's library during one of the first parties Nick attends.
And he's shocked, genuinely, comically shocked, that the books on the shelves are real.
They're real, he keeps saying. Have pages and everything. I thought they'd be a nice, durable cardboard. Matter of fact, they're absolutely real.
But then he points out something else, a crucial detail. The pages are uncut.
And we have to explain that. In the 1920s, high-end books often came with the pages folded together at the edges. You had to physically use a paper knife to slice them open as you read them.
So uncut pages means...
They've never been read. Not a single one. Gatsby bought an entire library of authentic, expensive books to prove he was educated, to prove he had depth.
But he didn't cut the pages.
It's the perfect metaphor for his entire existence. The casing is perfect, the content is unconsumed, it is all for display.
It's high-fidelity signaling, but with no underlying data.
Precisely. And this whole performance, this massive stage set, it requires an audience. But really, it's for an audience of one. Which brings us to the engine driving all of this. Why is he doing it?
The perception engine. The green light.
The single most famous symbol in all of American literature, the green light at the end of Daisy's dock.
And Gatsby is out on his lawn at night, trembling, reaching out toward it across the water.
It is the ultimate system incentive. The whole system of Gatsby's life relies on this unreachable future object to drive his behavior. He is driven by what Nick calls the colossal vitality of his illusion.
He hasn't seen Daisy in 5 years. 5 years? That's a long time.
And in those 5 years, she has ceased to be a person for him. She's become a grail, a religious object.
A symbol. He buys the house across the bay, specifically so he can be near her. He tells Nick he reads the Chicago papers just hoping to catch a glimpse of her name. He builds this entire bootlegging empire just to be visible to one pair of eyes.
He incentivizes himself to amass a fortune based on a memory of a girl from 5 years ago. But here's the system failure, and it's a tragedy of, physics as much as it is romance. The reality can never match the systemic demand for a perfect ideal.
There's that heartbreaking moment. It's in Chapter 5. He's finally reunited with her. They're in his house. The rain has stopped. And Nick observes Gatsby looking across the bay at the green light.
And Nick speculates, Possibly it had occurred to him that the colossal significance of that light had now vanished forever.
Compared to the great distance that had separated him from Daisy, it had seemed very near to her, almost touching her. It had seemed as close as a star to the moon. Now it was again a green light on a dock.
His count of enchanted objects had diminished by one.
That line gives me chills every time.
Yeah.
His count of enchanted objects had diminished by one. The magic only works when you can't touch it.
The moment you possess the object of your desire, it degrades. It becomes mundane. Daisy is just a woman. She has a cold, she gets cranky, she has a child.
Oh, the child. He can barely bring himself to believe the child exists.
He treats the child like a prop he has to acknowledge. I suppose she talks and eats and everything.
Because the child is concrete proof of the passage of time. Proof that he can't just erase the last 5 years.
And Gatsby is at war with time itself. But Nick, he nails the diagnosis later in that same scene. He says, there must have been moments, even that afternoon, when Daisy tumbled short of his dreams, not through her own fault, but because of the colossal vitality of his illusion.
Right. He had thrown himself into it with a creative passion, adding to it all the time, decking it out with every bright feather that drifted his way.
That's the perception engine. The system runs on wanting, not having. It motivates you to climb this impossible ladder by promising a view from the top that doesn't actually exist.
So Daisy is just a nice girl from Louisville who likes money and stability. And she becomes this blank screen onto which Gatsby projects his entire self-worth.
She's a market commodity to him in a way. There's a line where Nick says Gatsby found her exciting because many men had already loved Daisy. It increased her value in his eyes.
It's social proof,
Right.
like a stock.
Yeah.
She's valuable because other people value her.
It's a speculative bubble. And he's buying stock in Daisy Faye Incorporated at the absolute peak of the market based on 5-year-old data.
So to maintain this bubble, to keep the stock price of J. Gatsby high enough for her to notice, he needs distribution. He needs everyone to know he's a player.
And that leads us to insight number 4, spectacle as a distribution channel for reputation.
The parties.
The parties.
We need to describe the scale of these things, because they aren't just, mixers.
No, they are industrial scale events. Nick details the logistics in Chapter 3. The crates of oranges and lemons arriving every Friday. The machine in the kitchen that can extract the juice of 200 oranges in half an hour.
If a little button is pressed 200 times by a butler's thumb.
The buffet tables with spiced baked hams crowded against salads of harlequin designs. And the orchestra, it's not some thin 5-piece affair. It's a whole pit full of oboes and trombones and saxophones and viols.
It's just total excess. But the important part is the guests. Nick gives us that incredible list in Chapter 4. He writes it on the empty spaces of an old train timetable.
It's one of the most brilliant pieces of satire in literature. The names are just perfect. The Leaches, the Blackbucks, the Ismays, and the Christies.
From East Egg then came the Chesterbeckers and the Hornbeams and the Willie Voltaires.
Notice all the aquatic names. Hornbeams, fish guards, leeches. They're bottom feeders coming to consume.
And how do they treat their host? Gatsby.
They ignore him. Or worse, they mock him behind his back.
Yeah, there's that great line. Sometimes they came and went without having met Gatsby at all, came for the party with a simplicity of heart that was its own ticket of admission.
And when they do bother to speak of him, what's the narrative they create?
Oh, the rumors. He's a bootlegger. He killed a man once. He's a German spy during the war. He's a cousin of Kaiser Wilhelm.
The spectacle creates notoriety, but it doesn't create intimacy. It creates a myth, but it doesn't create respect. The guests just consume his resources, his lemons, his champagne, his music, to fuel their own social lives.
They're using his stage to act out their own dramas.
It's purely transactional. Gatsby thinks he's buying friendship or at least a ticket into the club, but he's just the venue manager.
And Nick notes this over and over.
Yeah.
Gatsby is always standing alone at his own party, watching, waiting.
His skin was tighter across his face. He's watching the crowd, but he's really just looking for one person. The party isn't for the guests. The guests are just extras in the movie he's trying to show Daisy.
And the ultimate tragedy is, when Daisy finally comes to one, she hates it.
That is the turning point of the entire novel, Chapter 6. Daisy and Tom come to the party. And Daisy is appalled by it.
She sees it as just raw vigor that chafed under the old euphemisms. It's not her world.
It's too loud, it's too drunk, it's too West Egg. She sees a bunch of celebrities and boorish directors, and she feels superior to all of it.
And because the target audience, Daisy rejects the marketing campaign, the party, The entire enterprise collapses.
Gatsby pulls the plug. The lights in his house fail to go on one Saturday night. He fires all the servants. He stops the music.
Because the one critic who mattered gave it a bad review. The show was over.
And this pivots us toward the inevitable crash, because you cannot run a system this hot with this much friction and illusion without something breaking catastrophically.
This is insight number 5. Social insulation and the externalization of consequences. For me, this is the dark heart of the book.
It is the most damning systemic critique that Fitzgerald offers. We have to look at what Nick calls the careless people doctrine.
It's his final judgment on Tom and Daisy right at the end.
It is. Can you read it? It's worth hearing in full.
They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness or whatever it was that kept them together, and let other people clean up the mess they had made.
Let other people clean up the mess. Okay, let's look at the mess. We have 3 dead bodies by the end of this summer.
Myrtle Wilson, George Wilson, Jay Gatsby.
And who are these people on our system map?
Myrtle and George are the collateral. They are the people with no insulation. They live in the Valley of Ashes.
Let's just visualize the Valley of Ashes for a second. It's a fantastic farm where ashes grow like wheat. It is literally the dumping ground for the city's industrial waste. It is where the burnt-out coal, the byproduct of all the wealth generation in New York, is discarded.
And that is where George and Myrtle Wilson live. They live in the literal waste product of the system.
Precisely. And so when the crisis happens, the affair, the car accident, look at who pays the price.
It's a chain reaction. So Daisy is driving Gatsby's car.
That is such a crucial detail. The death car. It's the yellow car, the flashy car. The circus wagon, as Tom calls it. The ultimate symbol of new money.
And Myrtle Wilson runs out into the road. She thinks it's Tom driving. She's trying to escape her life, her husband, the valley. She's flagging down the man who she thinks can save her.
And she is struck and killed. Daisy hits her. Daisy kills her. Does Daisy stop the car?
No. Gatsby says later, she fell away into my lap. She just collapses. She retreats into herself.
And then the system goes into overdrive to protect the asset, who is Daisy, and eliminate the threat, who is Gatsby.
Tom finds out what happened. And this is where Tom becomes truly diabolical. He's not just a brute, he's a brilliant systemic operator.
Yeah.
He finds George Wilson, who is just crazed with grief and looking for the killer.
And Tom points the finger.
He tells Wilson, that yellow car, it wasn't mine. It belongs to a man named Gatsby.
He weaponizes the grief of the lower class to eliminate his romantic and class rival.
That is a chillingly accurate systems analysis. The incumbent, Tom, uses the collateral damage, Wilson, to eliminate the challenger, Gatsby.
While he, Tom, and the actual perpetrator, Daisy, stay completely clean.
So Wilson goes to Gatsby's house. He finds Gatsby floating in the pool on an air mattress. He shoots him. Then he shoots himself.
The Holocaust was complete. That's Nick's phrase. The challenger is dead. The witness is dead. The collateral is dead. The books are balanced.
And Tom and Daisy.
There is that incredible chilling scene after the accident, but before Gatsby is shot. Nick looks in the window of the Buchanan house. He expects to see turmoil, chaos, a fight.
Wait.
Instead, he sees Tom and Daisy sitting at the kitchen table. They're eating a plate of cold fried chicken and drinking ale.
They weren't happy, and yet they weren't unhappy either. There was an unmistakable air of natural intimacy about the picture, and anybody would have said that they were conspiring together.
That is the insulation. That's what it looks like. They are protected by the hard rock of their status. They retreat into the fortress of East Egg, and they pack their bags and leave town before the funeral.
They smashed up things and then just vanished.
While Gatsby is standing outside in the bushes all night, watching over nothing, waiting for a signal from Daisy that will never, ever come.
The system protects its own. And Gatsby, for all his money, for all his parties, was never one of its own. He was always disposable. He was the buffer zone.
And this brings us to the man watching all of this, the man telling us the story. Insight number 6, observer infrastructure, Nick Carraway.
Nick is so fascinating because he positions himself as within and without. He says it himself. And he claims at the very beginning of the book to reserve all judgments.
Reserving judgments is a matter of infinite hope.
He presents himself as this neutral, objective observer. He even tells us he is one of the few honest people that I've ever known.
But is he? I mean, is he really?
No, not at all. He facilitates the entire affair. He's the one who invites Daisy to tea so Gatsby can coincidentally show up. He acts as the go-between, the messenger. He is deeply complicit.
And more importantly, he controls the entire narrative. He shapes our sympathy. Why do we root for Gatsby, a criminal who is obsessed with a married woman? We root for him because Nick tells us to.
Nick judges everyone else so harshly. He despises Tom, calls him a brute. He's annoyed by Jordan Baker's dishonesty. He sees the Wilsons as tragic, but ultimately pathetic. But Gatsby,
He tells Gatsby, you're worth the whole damn bunch put together.
I've always been glad I said that, Nick tells us. It was the only compliment I ever gave him because I disapproved of him from beginning to end.
But he didn't, not really. Nick elevates Gatsby from a common swindler, which is Tom's view, and let's be real, the legal view, to a tragic romantic hero.
That's so true. If Tom told this story, what would it even be?
If Tom told the story, it would be a police report. A bootlegger named Gats moved in next door, started stalking my wife, ran over her mistress in his gaudy car, and was subsequently shot by the grieving husband. Justice served. The end.
Wow. Yeah, the story is entirely dependent on who holds the pen, and Nick, the honest Midwesterner, decides to mythologize the hacker instead of the establishment.
Because Nick is also seduced by the dream. He is enchanted and repelled. He wants to believe that the rock of the world can be founded on a fairy's wing. He wants to believe that Gatsby's romanticism is somehow worth more than Tom's brutal realism.
Okay, so let's map this out explicitly. We love a good systems map on this show. Let's break down the components of the Great Gatsby machine.
Let's do it. First, the actors.
Right.
You've got the incumbents, Tom and Daisy. Their goal is simple: preservation of dominance and comfort. They want the world to stay exactly as it is because it benefits them.
Then the challenger,
Yeah.
Gatsby. His goal is disruption of the hierarchy and the acquisition of his grail, which is Daisy. He wants to literally rewind time.
You've got the collateral, George and Myrtle Wilson. Their goal is just survival and maybe escape, but their outcome is destruction. They are the fuel that the machine burns to keep running.
And we can't forget the fixer, Meyer Wolfsheim. We haven't talked about him much, but he's critical.
Wolfsheim is the one who fixed the World Series in 1919. He's the dark infrastructure under the glittering surface.
He wears cufflinks made of human molars.
Which is still the creepiest detail in the entire book. It's so gangster.
It signals that he is a pure predator. He shows that the entire system is rigged at a fundamental level. This isn't a fair market. The fixer provides the capital and the connections for the challenger.
But he's smart enough to stay in the shadows. He's a survivor.
He doesn't even come to Gatsby's funeral.
He tells Nick, I cannot get mixed up in this thing now. When a man gets killed, I never like to get mixed up in it in any way. I keep out. That is a man who understands the system far better than Gatsby ever did. Gatsby thought he could buy love. Wolfsheim knows you can only rent protection.
Okay, next. Incentives.
For Tom, it's status anxiety. He's reading these racist, pseudoscientific books like The Rise of the Colored Empires. He is terrified of being displaced by people like Gatsby.
For Daisy, it's security. She's paralyzed with happiness, but she's also just paralyzed by fear. She wants the romance, the rose, but she knows she needs the stability, the rock.
And for Gatsby, the incentive is all about recapturing the past. It's a single-minded obsession.
Can't repeat the past, he cried incredulously. Why, of course you can.
Such a famous line. Okay, tools. What are the tools the actors use?
Automobiles. They're vehicles of status and freedom for the rich, but they become vehicles of death for the poor. The death car, clothing, the costumes they wear, the gold hat, the beautiful shirts, the fatal pink suit, narratives, the stories they tell about themselves. Oxford man, war hero, descended from dukes.
All performances. And finally, the feedback loops. This is where the system becomes self-perpetuating.
Right. So you have the illusion loop. Gatsby throws parties, which makes people come, which spreads rumors, which makes Gatsby a legend, which makes him feel closer to getting Daisy's attention, which incentivizes him to throw even bigger parties.
It's a positive feedback loop for his own myth, but then there's a dark side, the crash loop.
The poor, like Wilson, get desperate. The rich, like Tom, exploit them. A crisis occurs. The affair, the accident. The desperate poor attack the wrong target, Gatsby, and the rich survive, insulated.
That crash loop is just brutal when you lay it out like that. Wilson kills Gatsby. He kills the wrong man. Tom is the one who is sleeping with his wife. Tom is the one who patronized him and dangled the car deal in front of him.
But the system successfully redirected the violence away from the incumbent and onto the challenger.
It's the ultimate systemic failure, or, depending on who designed it, the ultimate systemic success. The insulation held perfectly.
So we have to land this plane in the 21st century. Because like we said at the top, we aren't wearing white flannels and listening to jazz orchestras anymore. But these patterns, my God, they feel incredibly modern.
They are painfully relevant. I think we need to look at three main areas: what we can call status economies, reputational laundering, and structural carelessness.
Okay, let's start with status economies. This is influencer culture, right?
Gatsby was the proto-influencer, 100%. Think about it. He curates a perfect feed, his parties, his house, his car, that projects a lifestyle he doesn't actually inhabit. It's all for show.
We see this on TikTok and Instagram every single day. People who rent private jets for a photo shoot just to take the picture, but they're not actually flying anywhere.
The studio set jet. It is the exact same mechanic as the uncut books in Gatsby's library. It is a signal with no substance behind it.
The fake it until you make it ethos.
Exactly. But what Gatsby warns us is that faking it creates an incredibly fragile reality. If you build your entire brand on a void, on a lie, you are profoundly vulnerable. The slightest pressure, like a Tom Buchanan doing some digging, or today a call-out video or a journalistic expose, can make the whole structure collapse.
Because the truth of your origin, your history, it eventually catches up.
Yeah.
You can't just delete the past no matter how much SEO you do.
Correct. Okay, number 2, reputational laundering.
This connects back to Wolfsheim and the dirty money from the parties.
Gatsby's parties were essentially a massive mechanism to clean his reputation. He was a bootlegger, a criminal associated with gangsters. But if he throws enough parties, if he has a senator and a movie star in his garden...
He becomes a philanthropist, a great host, a man of mystery.
And we see this constantly today. Think about the crypto boom. Think about figures like Sam Bankman-Fried before the crash of FTX.
Or Elizabeth Holmes with Theranos. Or any number of figures who make massive fortunes in these gray areas, tech bubbles, unregulated markets, and then immediately pivot to high-profile philanthropy, hosting galas and making huge political donations.
They want the old money stamp of approval to cover up the new money smell.
They want to buy legitimacy. They want East Egg to finally invite them to dinner. And for a while, it often works, until the market turns and the truth comes out.
And that brings us to the third one, and this is the one that really keeps me up at night: structural carelessness.
The idea that the architects of a disaster can just retreat into their money. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated and let other people clean up the mess.
Just think about the 2008 financial crisis.
Yep.
The Tom Buchanans of the financial world created these complex, toxic asset subprime mortgages. They smashed up the entire global economy. But did they lose their homes? Did they end up in the Valley of Ashes?
No. They got bailed out. They retreated into their hard rock of capital. It was the Wilsons of the world who lost their homes. The Wilsons who lost their pensions and their jobs.
It's a recurring structural behavior. Wealth buys you distance from consequences. When an environmental catastrophe happens, an oil spill, a chemical leak, the executives who made the decisions don't live in the blast zone.
The Wilsons live in the blast zone.
The system allows the elite to externalize the risk while internalizing the profit.
That is the very definition of the careless people. And until we change that fundamental feedback loop, the tragedy of Gatsby is just going to keep replaying over and over, just with different costumes.
There is one more image from the book I think we need to touch on. It's the only real god in the book, the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg.
The giant fading billboard in the Valley of Ashes.
The eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg are blue and gigantic. Their retinas are 1 yard high. They look out of no face, just from a pair of enormous yellow spectacles that pass over a non-existent nose.
And they just watch over the dumping ground. And when George Wilson is going mad with grief, he looks at that billboard from his window and he says to his neighbor, "God sees everything."
But Michaelis, his neighbor, the voice of reason, has to remind him, that's an advertisement.
Man.
That it's hard. In a world driven entirely by commerce, moral judgment gets replaced by commercial surveillance. We are watched, but we are not cared for. God is just a fading billboard for an eye doctor who has already gone out of business. An eye doctor who, as Nick says, sank down himself into eternal blindness or forgot them and moved away.
It's a universe where the only oversight is a forgotten marketing campaign.
It's bleak. But it is the logical endpoint of a system that values enchanted objects over actual human connection.
So let's connect this back to the whole project, to crisis in perception.
I think the main thing is how we try to blame individuals. We want to say, Gatsby was a liar, or Daisy was shallow, or Tom was a jerk. And those things are true on one level.
But the book shows us they were functions of a system that incentivized them to be that way.
Daisy's value was manufactured by the market of men who desired her. Gatsby became a criminal because the legitimate paths to the green light were closed to a poor boy from North Dakota.
And we, the readers, we are complicit in it.
Mm.
We want Gatsby to win.
We do. Even after breaking it down like this, after all the analysis, part of me still wants him to get the girl.
Me too.
We prefer the myth. We prefer the gold-headed lover to the reality of the bootlegger. We conspire with the system to believe the lie because the truth that the game is rigged and the dream is a treadmill is just too unromantic to bear.
So where does that leave us?
It leaves us with the treadmill.
The treadmill.
The American dream in this system is a treadmill. It is the green light that recedes year by year. You run faster, you stretch your arms out farther.
And one fine morning.
But that morning never comes because the status you are chasing isn't about what you have. It's about who you are allowed to be. And for some people, the door to that room is simply locked.
And accountability is a luxury that the rich can afford to pay to avoid.
And memory is a luxury the poor cannot afford to keep.
Well, that completely changes how I see the great in The Great Gatsby. It's not great as in magnificent, it's great as in the great Houdini. It's an illusion.
A magnificent, beautiful, and ultimately tragic illusion.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought, a provocation based on Nick's very last lines. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past.
So maybe you should ask yourself, are you chasing a green light, a career, a status, a lifestyle?
Yeah.
Something that the system has maybe designed to be unreachable.
If you did reach it,
Yeah.
if you actually touched it, would you find, like Gatsby did, that the colossal significance of it all just vanished the moment it became real?
Something to think about next time you're scrolling through a feed of enchanted objects.
Indeed. This has been a deep dive into The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald.
We'd call it a hard-boiled analysis of a brutal social hierarchy. We really encourage you to read it again, but with these eyes.
This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon.
For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next. Thanks for listening.
Until next time.